The night sky over the Korean mountains burned orange and red. Lieutenant Ho stopped his patrol vehicle and stepped out into the cold winter air. He watched the falling object cut through the clouds like a wounded bird. It was not a meteor. It was not a plane. It was something else. The object screamed through the atmosphere, leaving a trail of fire and black smoke behind it. Ho had been a soldier for 8 years. He had seen many things, but he had never seen anything like this. The crash shook the ground beneath his feet. The sound was like thunder mixed with the scream of tearing metal. A bright flash lit up the mountainside 3 kilometers to the north. Trees bent from the shockwave. Snow fell from branches. Birds flew in panic from their nests. Ho grabbed his radio. "Command, this is Lieutenant. I have visual on an unidentified object. It crashed in Sector 7, requesting instructions." The radio crackled. A voice came through, tense and urgent. "Lieutenant, maintain distance. Do not approach. Quarantine protocols are now active. Wait for specialized units." Ho understood the order. He was supposed to wait. He was supposed to stay safe and let others handle this strange situation. That was the smart thing to do. That was the military thing to do. But then he heard the scream. It was faint at first. The wind carried it down from the mountain. It was not a human scream. The sound was higher, stranger, like glass breaking mixed with a cry of pain, but it was still a scream. It was still the sound of someone suffering. Ho looked at his radio. He looked at the burning wreckage on the mountainside. He made his choice. He started walking toward the crash site. The forest was dark and full of smoke. Ho used his flashlight to find his way through the broken trees. The crash had carved a long path of destruction through the mountain. Metal pieces lay scattered everywhere. Some of them glowed with strange colors. Some of them sparked with electricity. The air smelled like burning plastic and something else, something he could not name. The main body of the crashed object lay at the end of the path. It was a ship. Ho knew this immediately. It was not like any ship from Earth. The design was smooth and curved like something grown rather than built. The metal was dark purple, now blackened by fire. Strange symbols covered its surface. The scream came again. It came from inside the ship. Ho found an opening in the hull. The metal had torn apart during the crash, creating a gap large enough for him to enter. He hesitated for only a moment. Then he climbed inside. The interior of the ship was filled with smoke and flashing lights. Warning sounds played in a language he did not understand. Bodies lay on the floor. They were not human bodies. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and silver hair. Their eyes were closed. They were not moving. Ho counted 5 dead crew members. He felt sadness in his chest. He did not know these beings. He did not know if they were friendly or dangerous, but they were dead, and death was always sad. Then he found the survivor. She was pinned beneath a fallen beam. Her leg was twisted at a bad angle, clearly broken. Her skin was the same pale blue as the others, but her eyes were open. They were silver like mirrors, and they stared at Ho with a mixture of fear and defiance. She raised something in her hand. It looked like a weapon. She pointed it at Ho's chest. Ho stopped moving. He raised his hand slowly to show he was not a threat. The alien woman's hand was shaking. The weapon made a clicking sound, but nothing happened. It was broken. She tried again. Click, click, nothing. The alien woman let out a sound of frustration and despair. She dropped the weapon and closed her eyes. She was waiting for death. She expected Ho to kill her now. That was what enemies did. That was the way of war. Ho slowly lowered his hands. He looked at the woman trapped beneath the beam. He saw the pain on her face. He saw the blood on her leg. He saw the fear in her silver eyes. He made another choice. Ho removed his rifle and placed it on the ground. He took off his helmet and set it aside. Then he walked slowly toward the alien woman, his hands visible and empty. The woman watched him with confusion. She did not understand what he was doing. When he knelt beside her, she flinched. When he reached toward her leg, she screamed. The scream was not just from pain. It was from shock. It was from horror. The way she looked at his hands, you would think he was holding a knife instead of nothing. Ho paused. He did not understand her reaction, but he kept his voice calm and gentle. "I am going to help you," he said. He knew she could not understand his words, but he hoped she could understand his tone. "Your leg is broken. I need to look at it. I will not hurt you." The woman stared at him. Her silver eyes were wide with something beyond fear. It was disbelief, complete and total disbelief. Ho slowly placed his hands on her leg. She screamed again, but this time she did not pull away. She watched as he examined the break. She watched as he opened his field medical kit. She watched as he carefully wrapped her leg with bandages and used pieces of metal to create a temporary support. The work took time. The woman remained silent throughout, her eyes never leaving his hands. Every touch made her body tense. Every gentle movement made her flinch. But she did not fight him. She did not scream again. When he finished, Ho removed his jacket. The woman was shivering from cold and shock. He draped the jacket over her body, careful not to touch her more than necessary. The woman looked at the jacket. She looked at Ho. Then she spoke for the first time. Her language was strange and musical. Ho did not understand a single word, but he understood the question in her voice. He understood the confusion. Why? Why was he helping her? Why was he not killing her? Why was he touching her with gentle hands instead of weapons? Ho smiled softly. "Because you needed help," he said simply, "and I was here." The woman did not understand his words, but something changed in her silver eyes. The fear did not disappear completely, but something else appeared alongside it, something that looked almost like wonder. Outside, the sound of helicopters grew closer. The specialized units were coming. Soon, others would arrive. Soon, everything would change. But in that moment, inside the crashed alien ship on a cold Korean mountain, a human soldier sat beside a wounded alien woman. He did not see an enemy. He did not see a threat. He saw a person in pain who needed help. And that made all the difference. Lyra had prepared herself for death many times. As a scout commander of the fleet, she understood that death was always close. She had lost friends in battle. She had watched ships burn in the darkness of space. She had sent soldiers to their end with nothing more than a nod. When her ship fell through the atmosphere of this unknown planet, she knew the end had come. The coalition ambush had destroyed her engines. Her crew was dead. Her body was broken. All that remained was the waiting. Then the alien appeared. He was strange looking. His skin was a warm brown color, not the proper blue of the. His eyes were dark, almost black, and they held an expression she could not read. His body was thick and muscular, built for physical labor in a way that seemed almost primitive. Lyra raised her weapon. The power cell was damaged. She knew it would not fire, but she raised it anyway because that was what warriors did. They fought until the end. The weapon clicked uselessly. Lyra closed her eyes and waited for the killing blow. It never came. Instead, the alien did something impossible. He put down his own weapon. He removed his head covering. He walked toward her with empty hands and a soft expression on his face. And then he touched her. Lyra screamed. The pain in her leg was terrible, yes, but the scream was not about pain. The scream was about the touch itself. In society, touch was forbidden. It was primitive. It was animalistic. Civilized beings communicated through psionic fields, through technology, through careful chemical signals. Touch was for mating and for violence. There was no space between those two things. To touch another being without permission was assault. It was violation. It was the greatest disrespect one could show to another soul. But this alien touched her with hands that did not attack and did not demand. He touched her leg gently, carefully, like she was something precious. His fingers moved with purpose but also with care. Lyra did not understand. She watched as he wrapped her broken leg with soft material. She watched as he created a support structure to hold the bone in place. She watched as his hands moved with a skill that spoke of training and practice. He was healing her. This strange alien was healing her wounds with his own hands. Among the healing was done by machines. Doctors used tools and technology. They never touched patients directly. The idea of placing hands on another person's body to heal them was unthinkable. It was too intimate, too personal, too primitive. Yet this alien did it naturally. He did it as if it was normal. He did it as if there was nothing strange about pressing his warm hands against her cold skin. When he finished with her leg, he did something even more impossible. He removed the covering from his own body and placed it over her. The material was warm. It smelled of him, of this strange alien with his dark eyes and gentle hands. Lyra felt warmth spread through her body. It was not just physical warmth from the covering. It was something else, something she had no name for. She spoke without thinking. "Why do you touch me?" Her translation device was damaged, but it still worked enough to turn her words into his language. The sound that came out was broken and strange, but the alien seemed to understand. He smiled. It was a strange expression, did not smile. They communicated satisfaction through psionic pulses, not through moving their mouths, but Lyra found that she understood the smile. It meant kindness. It meant peace. "Because you are hurt," the alien said. His words came through her translator slowly, incomplete. "And I can help." "But you do not know me," Lyra said. "I am not of your species. I am not of your world. I could be your enemy." The alien thought about this for a moment. Then he shrugged his shoulders. "Maybe," he said, "but right now you are just someone who needs help. That is enough." Lyra stared at him. In her entire life she had never heard such words. They helped their own kind because of duty and obligation. They helped allies because of treaties and agreements. Everything was transaction. Everything was exchange. But this alien spoke of helping simply because help was needed. No duty, no obligation, no exchange. It was the most alien thing Lyra had ever encountered. More of his kind arrived soon after. They came in flying machines that made loud sounds. They wore similar coverings and carried similar weapons. They shouted at the alien who had helped her. Lyra could not understand all their words, but she understood their anger. He had disobeyed orders. He had come to her when he should have stayed away. A female alien with sharp eyes and a hard voice seemed to be their leader. She argued with Lyra's rescuer for a long time. She pointed at Lyra. She pointed at the crashed ship. She made gestures of frustration and anger. But Lyra's rescuer did not back down. He spoke calmly but firmly. He pointed at Lyra's bandaged leg. He pointed at his own chest. He stood between Lyra and the others as if protecting her. Protecting her, an alien he had just met, an enemy for all he knew. Lyra felt something strange in her chest. It was an emotion she did not recognize. It took her a long time to identify it. It was hope. For many cycles, they had been losing their war against the coalition. There had fallen. Their fleet was scattered. Their people were refugees and slaves across the galaxy. Lyra had been searching for allies, for any species strong enough to stand against the coalition's power. She had searched for strength, for weapons, for military might. She had never thought to search for kindness. Now, watching this strange alien defend her with nothing but his words and his presence, Lyra began to understand something. The coalition was powerful because they controlled resources and technology. They conquered through fear and force. But there was another kind of power, a power the coalition did not understand, a power that could not be measured in ships or weapons. The power to touch someone who was suffering and say, "I will help you, simply because I can." Lyra did not know if these aliens could save her people. She did not know if they could stand against the coalition's might. But she knew one thing with certainty. These beings were different from any species she had ever met, and in a galaxy ruled by cold logic and calculated cruelty, different might be exactly what they needed. The female leader finally stopped arguing. She looked at Lyra with suspicious eyes. Then she gave orders in a quiet voice. The other aliens moved forward with careful steps. They lifted Lyra gently, supporting her broken leg. They carried her toward their flying machine. Throughout it all, her rescuer stayed close. He watched over her. He made sure the others were careful with her wounded body. As they flew through the dark sky, Lyra looked at this alien world below. Mountains and forests and lights from their settlements. It was beautiful in a strange way. Different from the blue deserts of her, but beautiful nonetheless. She looked at the alien who had saved her. He sat beside her, his dark eyes watching her with concern. She did not know his name. She did not know his rank or his family or his history. But she knew what kind of being he was. He was the kind who would touch a stranger's wounds with gentle hands. He was the kind who would give warmth from his own body to someone who was cold. Lyra closed her eyes and let the pain in her leg fade. For the first time in many cycles, she felt something other than despair. She felt the beginning of hope. Captain stood in the observation room and watched the alien through thick glass. The creature sat calmly on a medical bed, her broken leg now properly treated by human doctors. Her pale blue skin seemed to glow under the bright lights. Her silver eyes reflected everything like mirrors. Had been in the military for 15 years. She had trained for many situations, but nothing had prepared her for this. An actual alien, a being from another world. It was the kind of thing from movies and stories, not real life. Behind her, Lieutenant Ho waited in silence. He had been officially reprimanded for disobeying orders. His actions could have endangered everyone. He could have been killed. He could have started a war. But looking at the calm alien on the other side of the glass found it hard to stay angry. Ho had done what his heart told him to do. He had helped someone who needed help. That was foolish. That was dangerous. That was also very human. "She wants to talk," said the translator, a young officer named Park Minyu. "Her translation device is working better now. She says she has important information." Nodded, "Let me in." The door opened with a soft hiss. Stepped into the room where the alien sat. Up close, the creature was even more strange. Her movements were too smooth, too graceful. Her eyes never blinked. Her silver hair floated slightly, as if underwater. "I am Captain," said slowly. "I am in charge of this facility. Who are you?" The alien tilted her head. When she spoke, her voice was musical and strange. The translation device on her chest converted her words into Korean. "I am Lyra, Scout Commander of the 3rd Fleet." She paused. "What remains of it?" Repeated, "Is that the name of your species?" "Yes, we have existed for 10,000 of your years. Our civilization once spanned 40 star systems." Lyra's silver eyes dimmed slightly. "Now we are scattered, broken, dying." Sat down across from the alien. "What happened to your people?" "The coalition happened." Lyra explained everything. Her words painted a picture of a galaxy could barely imagine. Thousands of species spread across millions of star systems. Some were peaceful, some were aggressive, most simply tried to survive. And above them all stood the Galactic Coalition, an alliance of the strongest species in the galaxy. They did not conquer through war alone. They controlled through economics, technology, and fear. They decided which species could grow and which would be restricted. They took resources from weak worlds and gave nothing in return. They kept the galaxy in order through absolute power. They had resisted. For 300 years they had fought against coalition control. They had won battles. They had freed slaves. They had given hope to oppressed species across the galaxy. And then the coalition decided to end them. "Are burned in a single day," Lyra said. Her voice remained calm, but her hands tightened into fists. 8 billion died. Our fleet was hunted. Our colonies were destroyed. Those who survived scattered to the edges of the galaxy. Felt cold. And Earth, what does the coalition want with us? Lyra looked at her directly. Your species has been observed for the last 100 years. The coalition has determined that humanity will become a threat within 2 centuries. Your population grows quickly. Your technology advances rapidly. You are aggressive, territorial, and unpredictable. So they want to destroy us too. No, destruction is expensive. Lyra shook her head. They will subjugate you. They will come with gifts and treaties. They will offer technology and alliance. By the time your species realizes the trap, you will already be slaves. Your young people will serve in their armies. Your resources will fuel their ships. Your world will belong to them. Felt anger rise in her chest. When will this happen? Within 10 of your years, perhaps less. Lyra leaned forward. But there is another path. What path? Alliance, not with the coalition, but against them. Lyra's silver eyes burned with intensity. I came to this system looking for help. I had heard stories of a species that had not been contacted by the coalition, a young species with great potential. I was searching for allies when coalition scouts found my ship and attacked. You want us to fight with you against this coalition? Almost laughed. We cannot even travel past our own moon. How can we fight an enemy that controls the galaxy? You cannot, not yet, Lyra nodded in agreement. But you have something the coalition does not understand, something they cannot counter. What? Lyra pointed through the glass at Ho, who still waited in the observation room. Him, what he did. Frowned, he saved your life. What is special about that? Everything, Lyra's voice softened. In the galaxy, species cooperate through obligation and exchange. We help allies because treaties demand it. We save our own kind because they share our blood. Everything is transaction. Everything is calculation. She looked at her bandaged leg. Your soldier saved me for no reason. He touched my wounds with his own hands. He gave me warmth from his own body. He asked for nothing in return. He did not know if I was friend or enemy. He did not care. That is just basic kindness, said. Any human would have done the same. No, Lyra shook her head firmly. No other species would do this. I have traveled the galaxy for 40 cycles. I have met hundreds of species. Not one of them would touch a wounded stranger with gentle hands. Not one of them would give warmth without expecting payment. She stood up slowly, careful with her injured leg. This is why humanity can fight the coalition, not because of your weapons or your technology, because you are capable of something the coalition has never faced before. And what is that? Unity through compassion, strength through connection. Lyra's eyes shone. The coalition rules through fear and separation. They keep species divided. They make everyone believe that survival means looking out only for yourself. But you humans touch each other. You help strangers. You give without expecting return. This creates bonds the coalition cannot break. This creates loyalty the coalition cannot buy. Was silent for a long moment. The alien's words were strange, but somewhere deep inside felt they were true. What are you asking for? She finally said. What does this alliance mean? I am asking for asylum, not just for myself but for my people. Lyra's voice carried the weight of desperation. The survivors number in the millions. We are scattered, hiding in dark corners of the galaxy. We need a home. We need a safe place to rebuild. You want Earth to take in millions of aliens. In exchange, we will share everything, our technology, our knowledge of the galaxy, our military experience. Lyra placed her hand over her chest. They will stand with humanity against the coalition. We will fight beside you. We will die beside you if necessary. And if we refuse? Lyra's eyes grew sad. Then my people will continue running until there is nowhere left to run, and your people will face the coalition alone, unprepared and unaware. She extended her hand toward. It was a strange gesture for her. Touching another being was against everything in their culture. But Lyra had learned something from the human soldier who saved her life. Sometimes, a touch meant more than words ever could. Looked at the extended hand. She thought about everything she had heard. She thought about the danger ahead. She thought about what it meant to be human. Then she reached out and took the alien's hand in her own. "I cannot speak for my entire world," said, "but I can take your offer to those who can. And I can promise you this. As long as I am alive, you will have at least one human who stands beside you." Lyra's fingers tightened around hers. The alien's skin was cool and smooth, so different from human skin, but the grip was strong. The grip was real. "Then perhaps," Lyra said softly, "there is hope after all." Dr. Park Jin had spent her entire career studying life. She had examined bacteria and birds, fish and mammals. She had wondered countless times if life existed beyond Earth and what such life might look like. Now she sat across from an alien being, and all her scientific training felt small and inadequate. Lyra had been moved to a proper research facility after the initial questioning. World governments had been informed. Scientists from many countries had arrived. Everyone wanted to study the alien, to understand her biology, to learn about the galaxy beyond Earth. But Jin was different from the others. She did not just want data and samples. She wanted to understand who Lyra was as a person. She wanted to know how thought and felt and lived. "Tell me about touch," Jin said during one of their sessions. "Why did you scream when Lieutenant touched you?" Lyra was quiet for a moment. Her silver eyes looked at something far away, something only she could see. "Among my people, touch is not done. It is considered primitive, animalistic." "But surely you touch each other sometimes, families, lovers." "Families communicate through psionic bonds. We share thoughts and feelings directly, mind to mind." Lyra tried to explain with her hands. "Parents do not hold children. Lovers do not embrace. These things are not done." "What about healing when someone is hurt?" "Machines heal. Technology heals. We do not use hands." Lyra looked at her own hands as if seeing them for the first time. To touch another being with your body is to cross a barrier. It is to invade their personal space in the most direct way possible. Among my people, it is done only for mating and for violence. Jin tried to imagine such a life. A life without hugs from parents. A life without holding hands with someone you loved. A life where every touch was either sex or fighting. "That sounds lonely," she said softly. Lyra tilted her head. "We are never lonely. We have our psionic bonds. We share our thoughts and feelings with our families and communities. We are always connected." "But never touched." "No, never touched." Lyra's voice carried something strange. "Until your soldier touched my leg." "What did it feel like?" Lyra was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I do not have words. In my language, there are no words for such a thing. The closest translation would be being seen, being known, being cared for in a way that is direct and undeniable." She looked at her hands again. "Psionic bonds are beautiful, but they are abstract. They are thought and feeling without form. When your soldier touched me, I felt his care in my skin, in my bones. It was not an idea of kindness. It was kindness itself, made real through flesh and warmth." Jin felt tears forming in her eyes. She tried to remain professional, but the alien's words struck something deep in her heart. "Do other species in the galaxy also avoid touch?" she asked. "Most advanced species do. Touch is considered a sign of primitive development." Lyra almost smiled. "The Coalition teaches that the most evolved beings have no need for physical contact. They communicate through technology and psionics. They heal through machines. They reproduce through artificial means." "And humans?" "Humans are different." Lyra's silver eyes fixed on Jin with intensity. "I have been watching your species since I arrived. I have watched your doctors and scientists. I have watched your soldiers and leaders. and I have seen something I never expected to see." "What?" "You touch constantly." Lyra sounded almost amazed. "Your doctors touch patients to check their health. Your leaders shake hands when they meet. Your soldiers pat each other on the back. Your scientists touch each other's arms during conversation." She stood and walked slowly around the room. Her leg was healing well, though she still moved carefully. "And it is not just formal touch. I have watched your kind through windows and screens. Parents hold children, friends embrace, lovers walk with their bodies pressed together. You touch to greet, you touch to comfort, you touch to celebrate, you touch to mourn." "Yes," Jin said, "that is what we do." "But why?" Lyra turned to face her. "You have technology, you have words, you have many ways to communicate. Why do you still touch?" Jin thought about the question. It was so basic, so fundamental that she had never really considered it before. Touch was just part of being human. It was like breathing or eating. You did not think about why. "Because it is real," she finally said. "Words can lie, thoughts can be misunderstood, but when I hold someone's hand, I feel their heartbeat. I feel their warmth. I know they are there with me truly and completely." She reached out and gently touched Lyra's hand. The alien flinched slightly but did not pull away. "When we are sad, we hug," Jin continued. "When we are happy, we dance together. When we love, we hold each other close. It is how we share our souls, not through thoughts or words, but through the meeting of skin and skin." Lyra looked at their touching hands, her cool blue fingers against Jin's warm brown ones. Two species from different stars, connected by the simplest possible bridge. "The Coalition sees this as weakness," Lyra said quietly. "They believe touch creates dependency. They believe it makes species soft and emotional. They believe evolved beings should stand alone, connected only by logic and mutual benefit." "And what do you believe?" Lyra did not answer immediately. She studied their joined hands for a long time. Then she gently squeezed Jin's fingers. "I believe," she said slowly, "that I have been alone my entire life without knowing it. I believed I was connected to my people through our psionic bonds. I believed I did not need more than that." A strange moisture appeared at the corner of her silver eyes. Jin realized with shock that Lyra was crying. She had not known could cry. "But when your soldier touched my wound with gentle hands, I felt something I had never felt before. I felt loved, not through thoughts or duty or obligation, loved through action, loved through presence, loved through the simple choice to reach out and touch." Jin moved closer and wrapped her arms around the alien. Lyra's body went stiff at first. Then, slowly, she relaxed. Her thin arms came up and wrapped around Jin in return. They stood like that for a long moment, human and strangers from different stars. "This is a hug," Jin said. "We do this when someone is sad or happy, or when we just want them to know we care." "A hug," Lyra repeated. The word sounded strange in her musical voice. "I like this, I like the word, I like the thing itself." When they finally separated, something had changed in Lyra's silver eyes. The hard warrior was still there, but beneath it there was now something softer, something more vulnerable, something more real. "I must tell you something," Lyra said. "When I first came to this system, I was looking for weapons. I was looking for ships and soldiers and technology that could fight the Coalition. And now I understand that I was looking for the wrong things." Lyra touched her own chest, where her heart would be if hearts were in the same place as human hearts. "The greatest weapon against the Coalition is not a ship or a gun. It is this, what you just did, what your soldier did when he touched my wounded leg. A hug is a weapon. Not the hug itself, but what it represents." Lyra's eyes burned with new understanding. The willingness to touch a stranger, the courage to be vulnerable, the choice to share yourself with others not because you must, but because you want to. She looked out the window at the human world beyond, people walking together, children holding parents' hands, couples with arms around each other. The coalition rules through separation, she said. They keep species apart. They teach that connection is weakness, but your species proves that they are wrong. Connection is not weakness. Connection is the greatest strength of all. Jin stood beside her, looking out at the same view. Then let us show the galaxy what connection can do. Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, let us show them what it means to be human. And in that moment, standing side by side, alien and human alike, both of them understood that something profound had begun. Something that would change the galaxy forever. All because one soldier chose to touch a stranger's wound with gentle hands. The coalition ship arrived 6 months after Lyra's crash. It came out of nothing, appearing in Earth's orbit like a ghost made solid. The vessel was massive, larger than any aircraft carrier, shaped like a black diamond floating against the stars. World leaders had been warned. Lyra had told them what to expect, but seeing the ship with their own eyes, humanity truly understood for the first time how small they were in the vast galaxy. The coalition demanded a meeting. They would send one representative to speak with Earth's leaders. The meeting would take place in Seoul, at a great hall built specifically for this moment. Representatives from every nation would attend. Lyra was there too, hidden among the human delegates. Her blue skin was covered by special makeup. Her silver hair was dyed black. She looked almost human now, except for her eyes, which she hid behind dark glasses. "Are you ready?" Ho asked her quietly. He had been assigned as her personal guard, a duty he took very seriously. "No," Lyra admitted. "I am afraid. I have not faced the coalition since they destroyed my world." Ho placed his hand on her shoulder. Lyra had learned to accept human touch over the past months. She still found it strange, but also comforting in ways she could not fully explain. "Whatever happens," Ho said, "you are not alone, we stand with you." The coalition representative arrived in a beam of light. He was one of the ruling species of the coalition. His body was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in gray scales like armor. His eyes were yellow with vertical slits. His mouth was filled with sharp teeth. His name was, and he looked at the assembled humans the way a predator looks at prey. "People of Earth," spoke in perfect Korean, his translator Chip handling the conversion flawlessly. "The Galactic Coalition greets you. We come with an offer of friendship and alliance." President stepped forward. He was a small man compared to, but he showed no fear. "We have heard of the Coalition's friendships. We know what your alliances mean." His lipless mouth twisted into something like a smile. "You have been speaking with the survivor. She has filled your heads with lies and distortions." "Lyra told us the truth," President said firmly, "about what you did to her people, about what you plan to do to ours." There were rebels, terrorists. They threatened galactic stability, waved a massive clawed hand dismissively. Their destruction was unfortunate but necessary. Humanity need not share their fate. He gestured at the humans around him. "Join the coalition peacefully. Accept our guidance. In return, we will share technology and knowledge. Your species will grow and prosper under our protection." "And if we refuse?" His yellow eyes narrowed. "Then you will learn what the learned. Resistance is foolish. The coalition has stood for 10,000 years. We have brought order to the galaxy. Species that accept our rule flourish. Species that resist do not." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Many of the delegates shifted nervously. The coalition ship still floated in orbit, its weapons capable of destroying cities in moments. But not everyone was afraid. Sergeant One stepped forward from the military delegation. He was a middle-aged man with gray in his hair and scars on his hands. He had served beside Ho for many years. He had seen Lyra's wounds. He had heard her stories. "I have a question," one said. His voice was calm, almost casual. Looked at him with contempt. "A soldier dares to speak to me." "I am not just a soldier, I am a human." One stood straight and tall. "And I want to know something. You say the coalition has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. You say you have brought order and stability. But I wonder, in all that time, have you ever hugged anyone? Blinked, his translator chip hummed, struggling with the unfamiliar word. Hugged, I do not understand. Have you ever held someone close, just because you cared about them? One walked slowly toward the massive alien. Have you ever touched a stranger who was hurt, just to let them know they were not alone? Have you ever given warmth to someone who was cold, expecting nothing in return? His expression shifted to confusion, then to disgust. These are primitive behaviors. The coalition has evolved beyond such animalistic impulses. I see, one nodded slowly. Then let me explain why you will fail. He turned to face the assembled delegates from around the world. Americans and Russians, Chinese and Europeans, Africans and South Americans, all of them watching, all of them listening. We touch each other, one said. That is what we do. When a child falls, a mother picks them up and holds them. When a soldier dies, his friends carry his body home. When strangers meet, they shake hands. When lovers marry, they kiss. He turned back to, you think this makes us weak. You think emotions and connections are flaws to be overcome, but you are wrong. One gestured at the world leaders behind him. These people represent nations that have fought each other for centuries. We have wars in our history that killed millions. We have hatred and division that seems impossible to overcome. And yet, he pointed at a Korean general standing next to a Japanese admiral. These two men's grandfathers tried to kill each other. Now they serve together as allies. He pointed at an American woman shaking hands with a Russian man. Their nations pointed nuclear weapons at each other for decades. Now they work together to protect our world. We do this because we know something you do not, one continued. We know that in the end our connections to each other matter more than our differences. We touch, we hold, we love, and these things create bonds that no weapon can break. Laughed. It was an ugly sound. Pretty words from a primitive species. Your touching and holding will not stop our ships. Your love will not shield you from our weapons. Maybe not, one agreed. But it will make us fight harder than any species you have ever faced, because we will not be fighting for territory or resources or power. We will be fighting for each other, for our families, for our friends, for the strangers we have never met but still consider brothers and sisters. He stepped close enough to touch the massive alien. You rule through fear and separation. You keep species apart and alone, but we are never alone. Every human on this planet is connected to every other human. Touch us and you touch all of humanity. Hurt us and all of humanity will rise to fight. Stared down at the small human before him. Something flickered in his yellow eyes. Was it doubt? Was it fear? It was hard to tell. You speak with passion, said finally. But passion is not power. When the coalition fleet arrives, your touching and loving will not save you. Then send your fleet, one said quietly, and learn what humanity is truly capable of. Studied him for a long moment. Then he laughed again, but this time there was less contempt in the sound. Brave words, foolish but brave. He turned to leave, then paused. You have one of your years to accept our offer. After that, the fleet will come, and then we shall see if your love can stop our guns. He vanished in another beam of light. The great hall fell silent. President looked at one. That was quite a speech, Sergeant. One shrugged. It was just the truth, sir. Across the room, Lyra lowered her dark glasses. Tears streamed down her face, cutting lines through the makeup that hid her blue skin. Ho moved to her side. Are you all right? Yes, she whispered. I am more than all right. For the first time in many years, I truly believe we can win. Because of one's speech. Because of what his speech revealed. Lyra looked at all the humans around her, these strange, touching creatures who hugged and held and loved without reason or logic. The coalition has ruled for 10,000 years because every species they faced stood alone, separated, divided. She took Ho's hand in her own, her cool fingers wrapped around his warm ones, a simple touch, a profound connection. "But humanity will not stand alone," she said. "You never do, and that, my friend, is why the Coalition should be very, very afraid." The Coalition fleet arrived exactly 1 year after its ultimatum. 300 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel, filling Earth's sky with dark shadows. Each ship was a weapon of destruction. Together, they represented power that had crushed 1,000 worlds. On the command vessel, Admiral watched the blue planet below with satisfaction. Another primitive species about to learn the price of defiance. It would be quick and efficient, as all Coalition operations were. "Begin the bombardment of their major cities," ordered. "Once their capitals are destroyed, the survivors will surrender." But something was wrong. The bombardment beams fired, streaking toward the planet's surface. And then they stopped. Energy shields flickered to life around the major cities, absorbing the attacks like water absorbing rain. "Impossible," muttered. "They should not have shield technology." "Admiral," his sensor officer's voice was sharp with alarm. "Ships approaching, thousands of them." Looked at the tactical display, and felt something he had not felt in 300 years of warfare. Fear. Ships were rising from Earth's surface, not the primitive chemical rockets the Coalition had observed. These were real warships, built using technology and human creativity. They were smaller than Coalition vessels, faster and more agile, and there were so many of them. But that was not what frightened. What frightened him was who was flying them. The Coalition had expected humans to fight as individuals. Separate nations with separate armies, easy to divide and destroy. That was how every species fought. That was how the galaxy worked. Instead, the entire planet rose as one. Korean pilots flew beside American crews. Russian engineers worked alongside Japanese technicians. Chinese soldiers stood with African warriors. Every nation, every culture, every language, all united in a single purpose. They called themselves the Earth Defense Fleet. They flew into battle with music playing on their communications, songs from every nation blending together into a strange harmony. They shouted encouragement to each other across the void. They laughed and cried and touched each other's hands before launching into fire. "They are insane," whispered. "They are completely insane." The battle raged for 3 days. On the human side, Captain commanded the carrier Unity, the largest ship humanity had ever built. Her crew was drawn from 40 different nations. They had trained together for 1 year, learning each other's languages, sharing each other's food, becoming a family. "Enemy fighters approaching port side," her tactical officer reported. "All batteries fire. Protect our little ones." Gripped her chair as the ship shook from explosions. She watched human fighter pilots dance between Coalition warships, their small craft weaving patterns of destruction. On one of those fighters, Lieutenant Ho flew into the heart of the enemy fleet. Lyra sat behind him, serving as his weapons officer. The survivor had refused to stay on Earth. She would fight beside the humans who had saved her. She would touch this war with her own hands. "3 enemies on our tail," Lyra reported calmly. "I see them." Ho rolled the fighter into an impossible spin. "Hang on." The fighter twisted through space, dodging fire that would have vaporized them in an instant. Coalition pilots were good, trained in countless battles, but they fought as individuals, following orders without passion. Ho flew as if the ship was part of his body. Every movement, every decision was made on instinct. He did not fight for orders or duty. He fought for the pilots on either side of him. He fought for on the Unity. He fought for his family back on Earth. He fought for Lyra, sitting behind him, trusting him with her life. "Missiles locked," Lyra said. "Fire." 2 Coalition fighters exploded. The third veered away, breaking off its attack. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out over and over. Human pilots dying to protect their wingmen. Human ships sacrificing themselves to save others. Human crews fighting not for victory but for each other. Dr. Park Jin had refused to stay safe on Earth as well. She served on a medical ship, treating wounded from both sides. When a disabled coalition fighter drifted near her vessel, she ordered it brought aboard. The coalition pilot was a lizard-like species known for their aggression. He expected to be killed or tortured. Instead, Jin treated his wounds with gentle hands. She spoke to him softly, even though he could not understand her words. "Why?" he asked through his translator. "I am your enemy. I came to destroy your world." "You are wounded," Jin said simply. "That is all that matters right now." He stared at her hands as she bandaged his arm. He had never been touched by another species before. The sensation was strange and disturbing and somehow wonderful. "Your species is different," he said finally. "Yes," Jin agreed, "we are." By the third day, the coalition fleet was breaking. They had lost over half their ships. More importantly, they had lost something they never expected to lose: their certainty. They had ruled the coalition because they believed they were superior. They believed that cold logic and calculated violence were the highest forms of existence. They believed that species who touched and loved and cried were weak. But these humans would not break. Human pilots flew damaged ships into enemy vessels, sacrificing themselves to protect their friends. Human soldiers fought hand-to-hand in boarding actions, screaming names of loved ones as they charged. Human medics dragged wounded from burning corridors while bombs fell around them. And through it all, they touched each other. They held hands before going into battle. They embraced when they survived. They kissed photographs of their families and whispered promises to return. Admiral watched his tactical display turn red with destruction. His own flagship was surrounded by human fighters. His shields were failing. His crew was dying. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "the humans are hailing us." Stared at the display. What did they want? To demand surrender, to gloat over victory. "Put them through." A human face appeared on screen. It was a young woman with dark eyes and tired smile. She wore a pilot's uniform covered in scorch marks and blood. "Admiral," the woman said, "my name is Ensign. I want to offer you a chance to surrender. If you power down your weapons and shields, we will rescue your surviving crew. We will treat your wounded. We will send you home." Stared at her. "Why would you do this? We came to destroy you." "Yes, you did," nodded. "But your crew are just soldiers following orders. They deserve to live if they choose to." "This is a trick." "No, Admiral, this is who we are." Tired eyes held something could not name. "We fight hard when we must, but we do not enjoy killing. We would rather save lives than take them, even the lives of our enemies." Looked around his dying bridge. His crew was terrified. They had never faced an enemy like this. They had never seen a species that fought with such fury and then offered mercy with such sincerity. "You are strange creatures," he said finally. "Yes," almost smiled. "We get that a lot." Made a decision that would change the galaxy. He ordered his ship to power down. Other coalition captains, watching their admiral surrender, followed his lead. One by one, the surviving ships stopped fighting. The battle was over. When the news reached Earth, humanity celebrated in the streets. But it was not the celebration the coalition would have expected. There were no marches of conquest, no displays of military power. Instead, people hugged. Families held each other. Strangers embraced on sidewalks, crying with relief. Soldiers called home to hear their loved ones' voices. A planet of 8 billion people touched each other with hands that had almost been lost forever. On the Unity, Captain watched the celebrations through her viewport. She was exhausted, wounded, and grieving for the friends she had lost. But she was also proud. Beside her, Lyra stood in silence. The survivor had fought her first battle since her fall. She had seen friends die. She had killed enemies. She had touched the chaos of war with her own hands. And she had seen something she would never forget. Humans dying with names on their lips. Humans saving enemies who moments before had tried to kill them. Humans touching each other in the darkness of space, finding connection even in the heart of destruction. "Is it always like this for your species?" Lyra asked quietly. Turned to look at her. Like what? So much pain and love together, so much death and life at the same time, so much touching. Thought about the question. She thought about the friends she had lost and the friends she still had. She thought about the touch of her mother's hand when she was young and the touch of her crew's hands as they fought together. "Yes," she said finally, "it is always like this. That is what it means to be human." Lyra nodded slowly. Then, without speaking, she reached out and took his hand. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Human and two species, two worlds, one future. And far away, in the dark corners of the galaxy, other species began to hear the story. A story about a primitive planet that had touched its way to victory. A story about a species that hugged its enemies and loved its friends. A story about humanity. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy began to change. 3 years had passed since the war ended. Earth was different now. Not the same world that had watched a burning ship fall from the sky on that cold winter night. The planet had grown, changed, become something new. Ships from dozens of species filled the orbital stations. Survivors had established colonies in the empty spaces of Asia and Africa, their blue-skinned people slowly learning to live alongside humans. The who had once fought for the coalition now served as traders and diplomats. Even some had come, curious about the species that had broken their unbreakable fleet. The coalition had not been destroyed. Their power had been shattered, their certainty broken, but the old system still existed in distant parts of the galaxy. There would be more conflicts ahead, more battles, more struggles. But Earth had become something new, a sanctuary, a symbol, a home for anyone who had nowhere else to go. Lieutenant Ho stood on a hillside overlooking the rebuilt mountain where everything had begun. 3 years ago, he had climbed through burning wreckage to find a wounded alien. 3 years ago, he had made a choice that changed everything. Now he stood in civilian clothes, his military service complete. Beside him stood his wife. She was a field medic he had met during the war, a woman who had touched dying soldiers with gentle hands, who had brought comfort to the wounded on both sides. They had married 6 months after the war ended. In his arms, their daughter slept. She was barely 1 year old, with her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin. They had named her, which meant sky. It seemed fitting for a child born into a world that now reached beyond the sky to the stars. Footsteps approached. Ho turned to see Lyra walking up the hillside. The scout commander had changed in 3 years. She still wore her silver hair long and her blue skin still marked her as alien. But there was something different in her eyes, a warmth that had not been there before. "You came," Ho said. "You invited me." Lyra stopped beside him, looking out at the view. "This is where my ship crashed. This is where everything changed. For both of us." Lyra nodded. She had spent 3 years as a liaison between species. She had traveled to dozens of worlds, speaking about humanity, explaining the strange, touching species that had broken the coalition's power. Many species did not understand. Some thought humans were dangerous primitives. Others thought they were fascinating curiosities. But more and more species were beginning to listen, beginning to wonder if there was another way to exist in the galaxy. "I met a young yesterday," Lyra said. "She was born here on Earth. She had never seen never known our old ways. Do you know what she did when she met me?" "What?" "She hugged me." Lyra's voice carried wonder. A child hugging an elder, it was improper, it was wrong. It was against everything we had believed for 10,000 years. She turned to look at Ho. "It was also the most beautiful thing I had ever felt." stepped closer, shifting their sleeping daughter in her arms. This generation will grow up in a different galaxy. Children who hug, children who play with humans, species that never spoke before, now touching, connecting, becoming family. Because of what happened here, Lyra said. Because one soldier chose to touch instead of kill. Ho shook his head. I did not change the galaxy. I just helped one person who needed help. Everything else came from what others did after. That is exactly the point. Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder. She had learned to touch casually now, though it still felt strange sometimes. The coalition believed that greatness comes from grand strategies and overwhelming power. They never understood that it starts with simple choices, one person helping another, one hand reaching out. She looked at the sleeping baby in his arms. May I? Smiled and carefully transferred into Lyra's arms. The alien held the human child awkwardly at first. She had held few bobbies in her life. Children were raised in communal centers, cared for by machines and teachers, never held by their parents. But Lyra had learned many new things in 3 years. She adjusted her grip, supporting the baby's head the way she had seen human mothers do. Stirred slightly, then settled against Lyra's chest. She is warm, Lyra said softly, so small and warm. The baby's tiny hand reached up. Tiny fingers wrapped around Lyra's finger. The grip was weak and strong at the same time. It was the grip of new life, of innocent trust, of complete surrender to the arms that held her. Lyra felt tears forming in her silver eyes. When you touched my wounded leg, I did not understand. I thought you were strange, primitive, foolish. I did not know that your touch would save not just my life, but my soul. Ho moved closer, standing with his wife on one side and Lyra on the other. 3 adults, 1 baby, looking out at a world that had changed beyond recognition. You asked me once why I saved you, Ho said quietly. It took me a long time to find the right words. And now I understand. Ho placed his hand over his heart. When I saw you trapped and wounded, I did not see an alien. I did not see an enemy or a threat or a curiosity. I saw a person in pain, and when I see a person in pain, I reach out. I hold on. I refuse to let go. He looked at his daughter sleeping peacefully in alien arms. That is what we do. That is what we teach our children. We reach out. We hold on. We refuse to let go. And that, Lyra whispered, is why you will never fall. It was the same thing she had said 3 years ago, after the battle, when she had first understood what humanity truly was. But now the words carried even more weight. Now she had lived among humans. She had touched them and been touched by them. She had learned to hug and hold and love in ways her species had forgotten 10,000 years ago. The sun was setting over the mountains. Orange and gold light painted the sky, the same colors that had burned when Lyra's ship fell. But this fire was gentle. This fire was beautiful. Below the hillside, a city was coming to life. Humans and walked together on the streets. Merchants sold their goods in the market. Ships from distant stars landed and took off, connecting Earth to a galaxy that was slowly learning a new way to exist. It would take time. Many species still believed in the old ways, the coalition ways, the ways of separation and cold logic. There would be more wars, more conflicts, more pain. But there would also be more touch, more connection, more hands reaching out across the darkness. Woke in Lyra's arms, the baby looked up at the blue-skinned face above her with curious, innocent eyes. She did not see an alien. She did not see a stranger. She saw a friend holding her with warm arms. The baby smiled. Lyra smiled back. And somewhere in the galaxy, the universe shifted, just a little bit, because a human soldier had touched an alien woman's leg with gentle hands, because kindness had been offered without expectation of return, because one simple choice had started a wave that would eventually touch every star. Ho put his arm around his wife. Together, they watched Lyra holding their daughter, alien and human connected by a bond that transcended species. "What do we do now?" asked softly. Ho thought about the question. He thought about the past 3 years. He thought about the battles fought and the friends lost. He thought about the future ahead, full of uncertainty and challenge. Then he smiled. "We do what we have always done," he said. "We reach out. We hold on. We refuse to let go. We touch the galaxy with human hands and show them what connection can do." Lyra looked at him, her silver eyes bright with tears and hope. "And if they refuse to understand?" "Then we touch them again." Ho gently took his daughter from Lyra's arms, cradling against his chest, and again, until they do. The sun set. The stars came out. Millions of lights in the darkness, each one a world, each one a species, each one a story waiting to be touched. And on a hillside on Earth, where a ship had once fallen from the sky, 4 people stood together. Human and soldier and scout, husband and wife and daughter and friend. They watched the stars. They held each other. They refused to let go. And that made all the difference.